Hey guys, what is up? Public here back with another video, and today I want to talk about the new class talents that have been added for Shadow and all of the pre-specs in the War Within. I actually have already recorded this video and talked about some of the problems with them, and they've already since made changes and bug fixes to some of these abilities. So I had to redo the video, so that's why it's taken a bit longer since this has come out. So let's dive in. Okay, so something that's been probably coming for a long time, we actually noticed this early on in Alpha. Mind Games was actually moved to be a PvP talent. Now this is significant because Mind Games was also in the class tree at the time, and so we were kind of expecting that we were going to see some changes up on the class tree. So specifically, all Mind Games and its two related points are completely gone. Mind Games itself has moved to being a PvP talent. The other two are no longer in the game. So this is a pretty big deal for anyone that's kind of focused on PvE Shadow. One of the things that we have been talking about is the kind of button bloaty problems with the spec. Mind Games kind of contributing to that to a certain extent because it doesn't really change too much what we're doing. It just kind of breaks up what we're doing in our rotation with like kind of a slightly upgraded filler. So that is no longer in Shadow's gameplay. That kit is gone instead of PvE, and now we have 3 new class talents to replace it. So starting off with Cauterizing Shadows, it simply says when your Shadow Word Pain expires or is refreshed with less than 5 seconds remaining, a nearby ally within 46 yards is healed for, this says 10,000. The tuning number is still kind of a work in progress, to say the least. So yeah, that's Cauterizing Shadows. I think we actually had this as a Shadowlands legendary in the past, and it was never used. One of the reasons why it was never used is because it actually did not proc when a mob died. So they have since added that when a mob dies, that it will actually trigger this as well, although it doesn't say that within the tooltip. Although I will just say in general, the amount is still quite low. I'm kind of hoping that we still have time to tune this up. Shadow didn't necessarily need more like yet another like passive random healing option in our kit. We already have quite a lot of just random passive healing. In fact, Essence Devour is basically this, but just way better. And it's a bit more controlled as well. So yeah, I don't really see a whole lot of like people gunning for this talent in particular. Just looking at a log of some Mythic Plus dungeon gameplay, Cauterizing Shadows was 1.3% of my overall healing in that key. Essence Devour was 20%. Mental Fortitude 14. The dots for about 10%. Yeah, so like it's just not very much healing whatsoever. So hopefully we have time to tune this up, perhaps, or even just rework it a little bit. Yeah, because we're almost never going to trigger this inside of a raiding environment. We always extend our dots with Mental Decay or Void Bolt if you're taking those talents. And then, we generally just try to refresh ahead of 5 seconds anyway. So, yeah, talent is pretty awkward. Not super happy with it, to be honest. So moving on, this works into Manipulation, which simply says you take 1% less damage from enemies affected by your Shadow Word Pain, and this is a 2-pointer, so it's in total a 2% damage reduction. Again, this is a pretty blah talent. We already have quite a lot of DR inside of our tree. We have the Flash Heal one, which is 10%. We have Fade, which is another 10%. So this is just 2%. Kind of randomly, and it's just a 2-pointer. Not a great point investment in my opinion, and probably something I would be dropping really early on if you need literally anything else in the tree. Yeah, not super psyched about this. And the other thing too is, while this is again yet another DR, it does have conditions on it. One of the conditions is the person that has your dot on it is what has to trigger the damage effect. This is really important because there's quite a lot of effects, particularly in raiding, although certainly some dungeon bosses as well, where the damage that's actually coming out is coming from the environment. Now, the boss might have spawned that environment effect, but it's not actually coming from the boss as a target, which means that this DR does not apply to that. So there are going to be mechanics in Raid and Mythic Plus where this 2% is not going to be applied, even if you have your dots active on every single target, just because of how environmental mechanics and damage works. So pretty disappointed in this option. They did keep the name from the old batches of talents, but yeah, not a big fan. Okay, now the last one, this is really where things get interesting. We have Phantom Reach, which increases the range of most spells by 15%. This is quite interesting because this is a very powerful kit, particularly inside of dungeons, I think, where you can actually max range abilities quite more easily. I think Balanced Druids and Marksmanship Hunters have already had this, so Shadow's kind of going in that group. So in our normal like 40 range spells, these are going to 46 yards. So you're getting an extra 6 yards of range that you can stand back and still be able to hit your target. The very cool thing with Phantom Reach is you can not take Manipulation or Cauterizing Shadows and still get to Phantom Reach by pathing through Improved Fade. So if you're in a case where you want these extra defensive options, you can still get Phantom Reach, which I think is great. This is of the 3 points they added, this is the one that I'm most excited about, and it's not even close by a long shot. So that part is really awesome. And one thing, and one of the reasons why I had to re-record this video, they did change this from the initial build to also work with Psychic Link, which is critical. When it first came out, it didn't work with Psychic Link. It's like, okay, it's kind of a bait talent then, because you could be standing and outranging Psychic Link but still be able to hit mobs. Now, I did notice a bug when I was testing this in particular with Psychic Link, that Psychic Link today on live actually struggles to work correctly if you're standing exactly at 40 yards away from your target, particularly like on that like edge grace period of the distance. That is something I did not know that existed in the game, but is still there, and Psychic Reach does still have that problem, or sorry, Phantom Reach still has that problem, although now it's up to 46 yards. So it's still affecting Psychic Link, it's still working, although there is just a minor bug if you are standing at max range. Otherwise, this is affecting, like it says, most shadow spells, so things that it's not affecting, for example, Psychic Horror is still 30 yards, Psychic Scream is still that like 8-yard range around yourself. It is not working with Divine Star, and it is not working with Halo. The Halo one is particularly important because if you are Archon spec, you are kind of reliant on being within range of Halo. The tooltip is not currently updating. When you're Archon, you get an extra 10 yards of Halo. So Halo says it's 40 yards. Although to get, if you didn't know, when Halo does its damage, it goes out and then comes back in. If you want to get the 2 hits of damage for doing that out, come back in bit, you actually need to be minus 2 yards back. So you actually want to stand at 38 yards to get the optimal damage from that actual hit coming in and out. So kind of awkward that Halo's that 38, 40 yards with Archon, and the rest of your kit is 46. So that part's going to kind of stink if you're Archon. But, what are you going to do? Other things that weren't changed, Void Tendrils is still the same yards as well. And a couple of other like CC stuff. Shackle Undead did get it. Master Spell did get it. So yeah, it's kind of like a hodgepodge of spells. I do think it's kind of weird that it's not everything, just because it's not super intuitive that you can stand at 46 yards until you have to CC and then you have to go 30 yards. I assume this is a consideration for PvP purposes or something like that, but it does make it a little bit more awkward as Shadow Priest and kind of a PvE type environment. And also, sorry, Mind Control also did get the extra 4 yards because it's going from 30 to 34. So yeah, a bit weird with all the various bits in our kit, but it is affecting most of our spells, and for the most part, all of our damage spells besides Halo and Divine Star. So these are the new class talents. This is not exactly what I was expecting. I was kind of hoping that they would take out 2 of our utility nodes in the shadow tree, maybe Silence and this choice node down here, and put it down on the bottom right of the tree, or maybe the dispersion guys down here and put those down over here, just to give us more choice and flexibility in our tree. But it seems like they had other ideas. This is a bit sad as well because we did technically lose damage from this change, right? Like Mind Games, while it wasn't that exciting, it did give us damage. So hopefully, I'm sure we'll get retuned around that, but this is just kind of a disappointing chunk of 3 things getting removed and changed out. I'm a fan of Phantom Reach, although I'm quite surprised that they added something like this into the game. But these other 2, yeah, definitely kind of think we should go back to the drawing board on that. But let me know what you guys think. Hopefully this was helpful, and we'll catch you in the next video. Thanks to everyone that supports me on Patreon and the YouTube members, and we'll see you in the next video.